Welcome back, and thanks for joining us on CBC News BC. I am Jessica Chung here in the Vancouver newsroom. Okay, let's get to your top stories. Prime Minister Mark Carney is scrapping all retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods that are covered by the Canada-U.S Mexico agreement by September 1st. Now, he was asked about this decision to change course, especially at a time when Canada is still facing 35% tariffs from the U.S. He says it comes after the U.S. reaffirmed its commitment to the CUSMA agreement.
So let's be absolutely clear. Canada currently has the best trade deal with the United States. And while it's different from what we had before, it is still better than that of any other country. So as we work to address outstanding trade issues with the United States, it's important, it's vital. We do everything we can to preserve this unique advantage for Canadian workers, Canadian businesses.
Now, Carney says because 85% of goods are exempt from the tariffs due to the CUSMA agreement, the actual U.S. tariff rate on Canadian goods sits at 5.6%, much lower than the 16% global average, and he says the lowest amongst all U.S. trading partners. Now, the Prime Minister also said that Canada will still maintain its tariffs on steel, aluminum, and autos as the Liberal government works with the U.S. to craft a new trading relationship. And warm temperatures in the coming days are prompting concerns for the elderly and more vulnerable parts of the population. Metro Vancouver could see temperatures into the low 30s, and one doctor says that heat can be very dangerous.
The main symptom that you'll notice when it progresses on to something life-threatening where you should call 911 or go to the ER is a change in your level of consciousness and cognition. If you get confused, or of course, if someone becomes unconscious, that's the main symptom that the heat in your body is going out of control and you need to seek medical attention right away.
Now, she recommends using a fan, misting yourself with water, and visiting a cooling center as some ways to cool down. Now to Victoria. An urgent care clinic for children at Victoria General Hospital will shut down on September 1st for an unspecified period of time. Now, Island Health says consultations usually performed by the Urgent Pediatric Assessment Clinic will instead be handled by the Emergency Department. Now, the health authority says it's determined to work with the doctors to get the clinic reopened as soon as possible. And BC Wildlife Rescue says a seagull that was rescued as a chick and then released back into the wild 25 years ago was recently found alive and well. Now, the rescue agency says the bird was found orphaned in Vancouver in August of 2000. It was raised at the center until it was big enough to fly and later released in Belcara. Now, last year, Environment Canada researchers captured and identified the gull in White Rock.
Just gives me such a good feeling that, we did something significant for this bird's life. We don't have a lot of data of the survival rate of these birds. So it's good to know that, a gull that we've raised has led a really healthy, long life.
Now, Bacher says gulls are known to regularly live 15 to 20 years old. And that's it for now. I am Jessica Chung, and you are watching CBC News BC. Don't go anywhere because BC Today is up next.
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. A major change in Canada's trade strategy with the U.S. amid the trade war started by Donald Trump today. The Prime Minister says Canada will remove retaliatory tariffs on CUSMA-compliant U.S. goods. What does this mean for trade talks and for our province? BC's Jobs Minister is going to join us and we'll take your calls. And in our second half, he's back. Master Gardener Brian Minter will be here to take your calls and emails as we head into another warm stretch across the province. I'm Dan Burrett, in for Michelle Elliott. Welcome to a Friday edition of BC Today. Thank you for joining us on radio, TV, and on our live stream. You can call us now on our top story. What do you think of Canada dropping retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods that are covered by the Canada-U.S. Mexico Free Trade Agreement? Do you think it's a good move? Do you think it's a bad move? What impact might it have on our province? 1-800-825-5950 is our number across BC. In Metro Vancouver, give us a call at 604-669-3733, pound 690 on your cell phone. You can email us bctoday@cbc.ca and send us a comment on our TikTok Live. As we said, Canada is removing retaliatory tariffs on all U.S. goods that comply with CUSMA. That's set to happen by September 1st. Tariffs on U.S. steel, auto, and aluminum, though, will remain in place for now. This morning, Prime Minister Mark Carney said that decision is in response to the U.S. sparing CUSMA-compliant Canadian goods from tariffs earlier this summer, and the Canadian government hopes to match that.
The actual U.S. tariff rate on Canadian goods is 5.6%. Compare that to the 16% global average. That remains the lowest amongst all of the United States trading partners. And more than 85% of Canada-U.S. trade is now tariff-free. So let's be absolutely clear. Canada currently has the best trade deal with the United States. And while it's different from what we had before, it is still better than that of any other country. So as we work to address outstanding trade issues with the United States, it's important, it's vital. We do everything we can to preserve this unique advantage for Canadian workers, Canadian businesses. And doing so will require both building on a soon-to-be revised CUSMA, our free trade agreement with the U.S. and Mexico, as well as developing a new form of trade and security partnership with the United States.
Prime Minister Mark Carney in Ottawa this morning. That announcement today comes after yesterday's call between Carney and U.S. President Donald Trump over at the White House. Trump describes the Canadian move as, quote, nice.
Yeah, he's removing his retaliatory tariffs, which I thought was nice. And we're going to have another call soon. Okay. Yeah, we had a very good call.
You're getting closer towards an agreement on trade?
I like them. You know, look, I'm fighting for the United States. Canada and Mexico have taken a lot of our business over the years, over 25, 30 years, especially during the Biden years. They took a lot of our business, and it's basically all coming back into the United States now.
So, what does this change mean for BC, if anything? For more on that, we're joined by Ravi Kahlon. He is BC's Jobs Minister. Minister, thanks for being here.
Dan, thanks so much for having me.
What do you make of this move by the Prime Minister?
Well, it was a bit of a surprise to us, and it's a little too soon to tell. Use a ice hockey analogy, whether this is about regrouping our own end with the puck or whether this is pulling the goalie. Time will tell. Our focus and what the Premier has been clear with the Prime Minister on is that we want to make sure that we have 8 months to a year while we're renegotiating CUSMA. Our priority needs to be, our focus needs to be around strengthening our local economy, making sure we are moving to provincial trade barriers, doing everything that we can do to make sure that we're in a strong position for those negotiations.
So, the Prime Minister said despite the ongoing trade war and U.S. tariffs on steel, aluminum, autos, copper, lumber, and energy, 85% of the trade with the U.S. is still tariff-free, still a better deal than other countries have. We know that our province is feeling the pain of lumber tariffs. How do you respond to this idea that perhaps we're just getting the best of a bad deal?
Well, that would be a fair comment if every jurisdiction had a trade agreement with the U.S., and that's not the case. Canada, we had a trade agreement with the U.S., and so yes, our agreement is better perhaps than other jurisdictions in the world, but not every jurisdiction around the world had a trade agreement with the U.S. If you look at forestry in particular and the duties that they're putting on place on forest products, this is going to hurt American workers just as much as it's going to hurt Canadian workers. The idea that somehow the U.S. is going to have enough forest products to be able to meet their need for housing just in the U.S. is crazy. Even the president himself, I don't think, believes that to be the case. And so they're going to see higher prices on housing. They're going to see higher prices for all their goods. In fact, that cost is just being passed on to them right now, but it's also going to have an impact on workers in British Columbia. And so our concern and our message to the Prime Minister has been, we're going to give you space to negotiate. This is a Team Canada effort we're partaking in, but we need to do the work at home. We need to support our workers, our forest workers. We need to invest in clean tech and expand the Northwest Transmission Line so we can unlock more projects and see more opportunities for people here in British Columbia and across the country.
We also asked BC Conservative leader John Rustad what he thinks of this move by the Prime Minister. Here's part of his answer. I'd want you to respond to it.
With regards to softwood, it's never been included in the trade deals with the Americans. It has been ignored now for 9 years under the NDP government here in British Columbia, and our softwood industry is on the verge of collapse. It is in really tough shape right now. So what's needed? We need to be able to come at this with a position of strength. Right now, the Americans are holding all the cards, and there's nothing that we can do to be able to get a deal. So in order to do that, what we should do is we should start by putting a tariff on thermal coal being exported out of Vancouver from the Americans. And if Donald Trump wants to push back on that, fine, then we'll just ban sending their coal off the Port of Vancouver entirely. It's time to get tough with Donald Trump.
Minister, what do you think of Mr. Rustad's suggestion there about banning U.S. thermal coal?
Well, first off, he's got a selective memory. Clearly, he's forgotten that the duties that have been imposed on BC forest products started when he was actually in government, a minister in government, and nothing was done to address it at that time. What I hear from the opposition leader is that he wants to take more action, more steps to sanctions on the U.S. And I get that. I too feel like we should be doing more, but at the same time, we're not at the table negotiating right now with the U.S. government. The federal government is, and what we have put in place is strong measures around alcohol, which is having an impact on the U.S. We're hearing that from governors across the U.S. that it's actually having an impact. And what we're doing right now is giving the federal government some space to have these important discussions in the negotiations that are going forward. Now, what we can be doing is strengthening our economy. And I've mentioned this before. We've got a lot of mining projects that are ready to go. We've got clean energy projects that are ready to go. What we need from the federal government is to start making those investments at home, because the stronger we are, the better position they will be in those discussions that are going on between our officials.
Just before we wrap up, Minister, in light of these changes and picking up on what you said, would BC consider changing its ban on American alcohol, given the changes that we're seeing from Ottawa?
Well, we're not making any changes. And, Dan, even if we made a change, Americans have been pretty clear. I don't think they would be buying those U.S. alcohol products. We're seeing Canadians, British Columbians responding, not traveling to the U.S. People are speaking with their dollars. At this time, we're not making any changes. We don't have as much faith, say, as the federal government does right now, that the Trump administration is going to cooperate or play ball. And if the case comes, if the point comes where we do get an agreement, where we're addressing the softwood tariff, we're addressing the pressures on aluminum, where we're coming away feeling that we have a good deal, then we'll take the next steps on alcohol from the U.S.
Lastly, Minister, we appreciate your time. The Prime Minister also said, quote, the Canadian government will soon select the first in a series of new nation-building projects that will connect and transform our economy. We've heard a lot about this. What does BC want him to build, and what could be built in BC?
Well, we've got billions of dollars of infrastructure projects ready to go. The Northwest Transmission Line is key in order to get power up into the interior, up into the north, so we can unlock mining projects, unlock a huge amount of economic development opportunities, and produce the cleanest products in the world. So that is one. We've talked to them about infrastructure to unlock the trade corridors. We know, and we hear this from premiers across the country, now that we're moving trade away from the U.S. and we're starting to move it towards Asia and other partners, BC is going to play a critical role in enabling that trade to flow through our ports. So there's a lot of projects that we think fit the bill. The Premier has had those conversations with the Prime Minister, and we look forward to hearing from them on which ones they believe should be prioritized.
Ravi Kahlon, BC's Jobs Minister. Thanks for your time, Ravi.
Thank you so much, Dan. Appreciate it.
We want to hear from you on our top story. What do you make of Canada removing many retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods? 1-800-825-5950 across BC. In Metro Vancouver, call 604-669-3733, pound 690 on your cell phone. Please be pulled over or hands-free if you're driving. Email us, bctoday@cbc.ca. Some of you already have. Send us a comment on our TikTok Live. Reg and Chetwin, you're on the line. We're going to get to you in just a moment. I want to first bring in our next guest, Cory Redekop, CEO of the Greater Langley Chamber of Commerce. Cory, thanks for joining us. What do you make of the Prime Minister's move today?
Well, hey, Dan, nice to be with you. I mean, nothing happens in a vacuum, or hopefully shouldn't. So if the removing the tariffs is going to get us a step closer to a better CUSMA deal or some trade stability, then it's positive. If we've just disarmed for nothing in return, then it's concerning. But the Prime Minister said that Trump on that call earlier in the week assured him that making this move would kickstart negotiations. So we need to get to a place where we have some stability and we protect the CUSMA exemptions and the CUSMA trade deal. So if this helps us get along those way, I'm happy to see it happen. And I know many of my members in Langley and many BC businesses have been feeling those retaliatory tariffs, in some cases even more than the American ones in the first place.
Let's get to Reg and Chetwin. Reg, thanks for waiting. What do you make of the move?
Well, generally, I support what Mr. Carney's been doing and trying to stick handle, using the hockey fund with all the dealings with Trump. My big concern comes to some of the early pronouncements when back in January when they talk about water. Water, to me, seems to be the holy grail. Trump's pronounced on that and said he's quite interested. We've got the Columbia River Treaty close to completion. We've got interest in Alberta about moving water. We've got municipalities talking about moving water from municipal up in the Peace, from pipelines from the Peace, and the same in Alberta. So my big concern is, what's the deal on water? How is BC itself going to reassert the BC Water Protection Act to ensure that that's not on the table? And be interested in what your panelists have to say, and look forward to hearing what the government of BC has to say about it.
Reg, thank you very much for your call. Reg and Chetwin. Cory Redekop, does water come up in any discussions you have with your members?
I mean, here in the chamber, here in our business community, we're much more concerned on business and inputs and manufacturing and food processing. I mean, I know we've got. I know it's tempting to look at water or electricity as Premier Ford often talks about. I think what we want to be doing is figuring out how do we move towards a more predictable and a more productive relationship. I think those would be deemed nuclear options, and they're probably deemed that for a reason. So we shouldn't be I don't think we should be jumping to those steps too far. So I'm hopeful that, I mean, it sounds like the Prime Minister it's been months since they've had a contact with President Trump. So it sounds like they did that this week. They have another call apparently booked. Hopefully we're moving in those right directions. Because I mean, if this gets us closer, then that's helpful, because a lot of businesses, they've been looking for inputs, whether it's bolts or screws or joists or whatever, plastics, whatever it might be. Sometimes you can't find them in the same quantities or the same specifications that you need. So businesses here look around your community. There are businesses that have been impacted by these counter tariffs. So this will hopefully help bolster those a little bit, which have had a really hell of a go for the last few months.
Nash is joining us from Vancouver. Nash, what do you think?
I just kind of disillusioned the provincial and federal government. They were talking about being real tough guys, elbows up, and let's give it to the Americans. It's like they folded like a cheap suit on every chance they got. And the other point I wanted to make is if the forestry industry is losing money maybe shut it down. How much taxes can we keep putting in to support a dying industry? Maybe it's time to start building weapons and start selling them around the world and helping our tech industry.
Nash,
talks all the time. They do nothing.
I think Nash, if I could put to you, we've also heard similar concerns from other governments of different stripes that were accused of not doing enough for the forestry sector across decades. What would you do for those workers then if you suggest shutting down the mills and putting the industry out? What do you do with the workers?
There's hundreds of millions of dollars of training money that the government's giving out anyways. They can sign up for those programs if they qualify. If they
qualify.
You can't keep supporting dying industry. I know that's a socialist agenda up here in Canada, but if it's not working, let it go.
All right. Nash, appreciate your call. Thank you very much. Cory Redekop, where are you, if you can give us some on-the-ground examples of the members that you're dealing with, where are they really feeling the pinch point of this trade war?
I think there's the obvious ones. I mean, if you're exporting down to the States, that's the obvious one. You now are figuring out, do you have the margins where you can absorb some of this? Can your customers take higher prices? So that's the obvious one. Mm-hmm. The thing that we're talking about today is those retaliatory tariffs. I mean, I was just meeting with a plastic company yesterday, which they can't find the specifications they need to produce the plastics products that they make, so they have to get those from the States. There is no other. There's no one's making them anywhere else. So they're having to figure out, well, will our customers pay a 25-35% premium now for that? We had a lumber company I met a little while ago who gets their joists that are made, and they go from Edmonton to Oregon and back up here. I mean, and that's, of course it does. We've been 40 years of integrating our economies. It's meant to be done that way so that we're as productive as we can be. But there's no other option. The only Canadian manufacturer suddenly has everyone knocking at their door, and they can't meet the demand. So either you don't get the joists, so we aren't building the housing we all want, or you have to get them from the States. And then what does that mean for pricing? Mm-hmm. So I think they're definitely in our community, the exporters, that's obvious, and they need to get some certainty here, and hopefully can figure out the CUSMA compliance. The importers, this announcement today will help them. I mean, I think what's flying under the radar, next Friday the de minimis rules go away, so that's mm-hmm. for all your small scale online e-commerce or your small retailers. They're all now going to have to be caught up in tariffs and CUSMA compliance, which they never had before. So that's really concerning for the small business community for sure. So there's a lot of fronts on this, and we had a little bit of stability there. We had, after Liberation Day or whatever the Trump president called it, we at least knew what we were dealing with. Mm-hmm. And then we saw again more changes and more changes today. So we just need to get to a point where we can actually focus on doing business, because I can tell you, Dan, the amount of money and time and oxygen going into figuring this out and compliance and navigating the whole thing, it's dizzying. And all of that would be better spent growing jobs and growing the economy here.
Scott writes us to say, what we need to understand as Canadians is that the new U.S. tariffs make it more expensive to manufacture south of the border. We can import the same inputs tariff-free, manufacture in Canada, and then export once into the U.S. under our existing CUSMA agreement, avoiding all tariffs. That makes Canada the cheaper place to manufacture. Cory, is that a realistic option? We do know that when it comes to manufacturing, that can take years, if not occasionally a decade or so, to get a warehouse or a factory set up.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the piece that a lot of people miss, and I think the president misses too. You're not going to stand up an entire new steel industry or double the size of the American car industry without years or decades and billions, or not tens of billions of dollars. Those decisions aren't going to be made before in 18 months before he loses the midterm elections or within this term. So and that's the challenge we're seeing, is that we have lots of people, lots of businesses are looking, okay, where can I get this piece, this input from a Canadian manufacturer? And those manufacturers are trying to figure out how do I make more? How do I spin more of this stuff out? But that takes time. It's not a matter of just flipping a switch and suddenly you have a new warehouse or you have a new production line. So that's the challenge we're seeing. I think businesses certainly are still looking to make sure how we onshore more of that. Businesses certainly are looking at how do we get more Canadian options. And I would your listeners on the consumer side, keep those elbows up. I mean, you need to be supporting Canadian manufacturers, Canadian products. Mm-hmm. It is being noticed. I think Minister Kahlon said it is being noticed in the States that we're not traveling there, we're not buying as much from there.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it's important that we keep doing that on the consumer side. It's just the businesses, they need to make sure that they're keeping their doors open, and anything we can do to lower costs for them is important for all of us.
On a local and provincial level, what sort of conversations are you having with City of Langley, Langley Township, and the province around any way to make things a bit easier for businesses and your members?
Yeah, that's the point, and I appreciate Minister Kahlon's comments earlier on the call here, but they might want to look at home first. There's lots of things the province of BC could be doing to be lowering costs, to be making it easier to do business in BC, reducing the amount of barriers. I'm just dealing with businesses, chatting with a few businesses just this week about how they're going to early file their plastics for registration, and later on in the fall, all these businesses are going to have to start doing their pay transparency reports. I mean, the number of paperwork and filings and documents that businesses have to do. That, again, if we're talking about time spent on compliance, that's all time that someone has to be paid to do, which could again be making the bottom line a bit stronger and maybe growing jobs. So the federal government, I mean, it's been what, 5-6 months since the election. We don't have one Canadian economy yet. We haven't really. July 1st came and went. We haven't really seen the action that we were promised on some of those, breaking down trade barriers and building infrastructure. It sounds like we're getting there, but let's get that ball moving. And to the province, and I think all levels of government need to be looking critically at what are we doing? Is this actually needed at a time when the entire trade and economic landscape has shifted? And I think the board's been reset, and it's time now for us to be looking at, do we need this regulation? Does this piece of red tape have to happen? Is this report a nice to have, or is it actually going to help us achieve anything meaningful? And if it's not, let's get rid of it for the time being so that our businesses can focus on navigating what has been an unprecedented, that word gets used a lot, but it's been an unprecedented time for anyone trying to do business in Canada, let alone internationally.
And to clarify, when it comes to provincial trade barriers, I believe the Prime Minister promised to lower federal barriers amongst trade. It is going to take a lot longer, I think, between the provinces when it comes to those rules. Cory Redekop, we're going to wrap it up there. We really appreciate your time and your expertise, and it will never be boring as we continue to navigate this, and we'll check in with you another time. Thank you.
Yeah, take care, Dan. That's enough.
You are watching and listening to BC Today. Time for a quick TV break. Thanks to everybody else who is still listening. We had lots of emails on displacement concerns about the FIFA Men's World Cup on our show yesterday. Doug writes, there is a certain amount of scamming involved here. 350,000 people will come to FIFA games, but every summer we get 350,000 tourists to fill hotels. Mina, forgive me if I'm not pronouncing it right, I am much more concerned with late-night riotous, cavorting, pub-crawling sports fans than any homeless persons. Maureen and Oliver says if we're going to clean up downtown Vancouver for FIFA, we should look for a permanent solution for the people who are unhoused, not just pretty things up for visitors. The people who are being moved out of the way are not living on the street because they want to. They need treatment for their addictions, and trashing their possessions and moving them to a new location over and over is not helping them. Matt writes us, at the risk of sounding ancient, why not expand the story of affordable inner city housing to include the original sin of wiping out False Creek et al. For Expo 86? We're going back into the mists of time there. Show me where those people were supposed to go. Then 2,000 long-term psych beds disappear, and most of the patients appear at Main and Hastings. I believe he's referring to the closure of Riverview. What a human tragedy. And here's a reference for you. Fantastic. And Anna says, I'm finding it a little ironic that the topics of yesterday's shows are hosting the FIFA matches and providing breakfast programs for hungry kids. Yes, we had Breakfast Club of Canada on. Should Vancouver be hosting a big party for privileged sports fans while many families can't afford to provide breakfast for their kids? These are difficult times with housing, food, and other living expenses being hard for many families to cover. We should be taking care of these problems before spending money on big sports events. We always appreciate all your emails, your calls, and your messages. We'll have more of that coming up. You are watching and listening to BC Today. This is BC Today on CBC. We're on Radio 1, CBC Television, and live streaming on our website, cbc.ca/BC. We're on YouTube as well at CBC Vancouver and on the CBC News app. Coming up, calling all green thumbs. Master Gardener Brian Minter is here to take your questions and calls. We couldn't have him on last Friday, but he's here today, and he'll be here next Friday as well. Double dose of Minter. That's after this news update with Stephanie Mercier.
Good afternoon. In the news, Prime Minister Mark Carney says Canada is not letting its guard down. The Prime Minister made the comment after announcing he is dropping retaliatory tariffs on many U.S. goods. That will apply to goods that comply with the CUSMA free trade agreement. The announcement is being well received by the White House. U.S. President Donald Trump called the move nice and said he hopes to speak with Carney soon. The lawyer for a BC ostrich farm says the operators hope to have their case heard by the Supreme Court of Canada. Yesterday, Universal Ostrich Farm lost its appeal to stop a cull of its flock. The CFIA issued the order last December after 2 dead birds tested positive for avian flu. A total of 69 birds died at the farm in December and January. And while the farm says the flock is now healthy, the CFIA says the cull is necessary because the virus could mutate. And a new report out today from the World Health Organization warns workers need stronger protection from extreme heat. It comes as warmer temperatures are expected across BC starting today and through next week. The WHO report says millions of workers are exposed to heat stress, which affects their health and their performance. Looking now at the BC weather, along the north coast, a mix of sun and cloud with a high of 19. For the Peace region, sunshine and 23. For the central interior, sunny, highs of 21. For the southeast, sunshine and up to 28. For the southern interior, sunny and a high of 30. And here on the south coast, sunshine with highs of 23 near the water and up to 29 degrees inland. Now back to BC Today with Dan Burritt.
Stephanie Mercier, thank you very much in our Vancouver newsroom. Thank you for joining us on Radio 1, CBC Television, live streaming on the CBC News app and on the CBC Vancouver YouTube page. Temperatures in the coming days are going to hit new highs past the 30s in parts of BC and in Metro Vancouver and the South Coast. This is, of course, a good time to re-up reminders to check on older people, loved ones, those who are vulnerable, and be aware of the resources offered by communities near you. Family physician Dr. Melissa Lem spoke with Early Edition guest host Chris Walker this morning to advise all of us on tips to prevent that heat stress.
We know in the heat dome that, that was really where most people got sick and people died, was when they were by themselves. What can people do to stay cool when it's so hot?
Well, one option is actually heading to a cooling center. So giving your body a break from that ongoing heat within your home if you don't have cooling. And over the last couple of months, I actually heard that the oldest building in Vancouver, Christchurch Cathedral, actually became the first non-Vancouver city center to become an official cooling center. And so I think more and more kind of private community organizations need to step up to become sanctuaries of cooling for people. But things that you can do in your own home, if you don't have cooling, up to a certain level, once you start heading over, say, 40 degrees or 38 degrees, fans can actually worsen things. But before then, using a fan, misting yourself with water, taking cool showers and baths, and then just wearing light clothing and avoiding exertion, staying in the shade can help.
Dr. Melissa Lem speaking with the Early Edition's guest host Chris Walker about tips to avoid heat stress, especially as we're in for another warm stretch of summer weather across the South Coast and beyond this weekend. Well, we missed him last Friday as we announced the winner of BC's Best Symbol, but he's back. Master Gardener Brian Minter is here with all of his gardening advice and to take your questions. Joining us from Country Garden Limited in Chilliwack. Give us a call now, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733 in Metro Vancouver, pound 690 on your cell phone, or leave a comment on our TikTok Live and email us bctoday@cbc.ca. Brian, you'll be shocked to learn we already have a call on the line, but let's get to you first. Nearing the end of summer, people looking ahead to winter vegetables already?
Yeah, Dan, it sounds surprising, but you actually look at the calendar, we're pushing near September, And once we get down to less than 10 hours of light a day, things stop growing in the garden. They'll hold, but they won't grow anymore. And that's why out of Europe, and we have to give a shout out to West Coast Seeds, who for years now are making all these vegetables out of Europe available. And there are hardier strains of traditional vegetables we have. There's corn salad lettuce, for example, a winter density lettuce, which is great. Winter beets. There are leeks that are winter hardy and so on as well. And for a little bit different, we have the winter broccoli, the winter cabbage, the winter cauliflower, and of course, kale is hardy everywhere all the time, but also root crops. Don't forget about, the winter carrots and beets, winter beets as well. Just a little bit hardier to get through our winters. Now, Dan, the thing is this. It's getting late to seed them, because we couldn't remind you last week, sorry, but it is getting late to seed. But many growers now are having transplants ready that you can actually, it'll save you about 2 or 3 weeks of time, but getting the winter vegetables in. And just a reminder that it sounds like, well, what are we doing here? When the time comes in late October, November, and December, you want to go in your garden and the price of vegetables are high. Guess what? You've got them, which is really nice to have. And even the wall onions you put in now, you don't harvest those till next spring. So those are traditional things that more and more folks are doing, Dan. I think it's a wonderful thing to be able to do that. The other thing is garlic. We're going to be talking about that in September and October, but now is garlic time. Folks need to be looking around. Seems to be a fewer sources this year of garlic, but to get those to be able to plant in your garden, to be able to harvest next July, because that's becoming a really big thing. And Dan, one more thing very quickly. If you want a little bit of unusual color in your garden in September, I do have to say that the colchicum, or autumn crocus as they're known, are only available this time of year for a very short period of time. And also, for those who want to make their own saffron, the saffron crocus, Crocus sativus, is available. And the odd thing is you plant them now and they bloom now a few weeks later after planting, which is really unique and different. And Dan, I've seen such spectacular shows in people garden in September, like where do those crocus come from? From the colchicum, so really neat. So there's a few heads up and things that I think are really important right now.
Love it. Again, shocked to learn. We have 4 calls lined up for you, Brian. Let's go to Patrick in Vancouver. You're on with Brian. Patrick, go ahead.
Hey, thanks so much for taking my call. I've been listening to BC Today since I was young, and I'm so excited. I finally have my own little garden, and I can ask some questions. Yeah, so 2 things. First thing, I bought some cedars just for a little bit more privacy, and I bought a big outdoor clay pot for them with a little bit of drainage. And one of them is it's starting to look like a little brown on one side, and like the leaves or the foliage looks like it's kind of dying a little bit. So I just want to make sure I give it its best chance for survival and to let it thrive. And then just real quickly, sorry.
Sure. No, I'm just going to say that's really, really important. There's 3 things that are key. Number one is and you've got them in pots, which is absolutely fine, but you want to make sure you have an actual tree soil. A tree soil accommodates, potting soil holds too much moisture, not the best thing for them. And if you would just add a bit of fir bark, really mulched up a couple of times, a very fine fir bark into that soil, that'll get you closer to the type of soil that they need and do well. And the other thing is that at this point here, if you're just seeing a little bit of browning, Patrick, you're going to be okay. But look for, on the top of the plant, look for a bit of new growth. If there's new growth coming, you're going to be fine. And the last thing I wanted to say, and this is really important too, putting some timed release fertilizer, like a 14, 14, 14, I would say about maybe a small handful around that pot now, would pay huge dividends, because it takes a week to kick in and then it'll start feeding your plant. So getting the thorough watering, the right type of soil, and that type of feeding, Patrick, you should be able to save that tree and your other ones with no problem at all.
All right. Patrick, thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate your call. We're going to have to just stick with that, Patrick. But thank you so much for your call. Glad you got through. Barb is in Victoria. Go ahead, Barb.
Oh, good morning or afternoon. Can you hear me okay?
Sure can. You're on. Go ahead.
Okay. Brian, I have a triple graft fruit tree. It's a plum, a peach, and a nectarine. And I got it planted. It's doing fabulous. However, it's supposed to be a semi-dwarf, and it has so much growth at the top. It's almost like it's top-heavy. Now, I wonder if I can prune that to keep it in, a reasonable height.
Yeah, Barb, a really good question. And those trees, are a little more problematic than other ones. But if yours is growing great, I'm very happy to hear that. We should have had this conversation about 3 or 4 weeks ago, but let's go and prune that tree back right now, particularly on peaches and plums. They just have rapid growth. They get out of hand. And when you see that growth coming back, cut it back about 1/3 to 1/2. We're late in doing that now to accommodate new growth coming out, but you got to do it anyway. Otherwise, you have this long, stringy plant that's not nice and bushy and it's not going to give you much fruit in the future. So, Barb, go back and prune it 1/3 to 1/2 back right now. So what you want is branches coming out, but you want side branches coming from each of those as well, ultimately to get you a better shaped tree and more fruit.
Barb, thank you very much for your call. Appreciate it. We're going to move on to Ron in Parksville. Ron, what do you say?
Hello.
Hi, Ron, you're on.
Yes. As you noted, I'm in Parksville, and we are on level 4 water restrictions, so we can't water our lawns right now. But it's the same almost every year, and every year my lawn turns really, really yellow, and then it takes a whole spring of water and fertilizer and everything to get it to recover. So I just wonder if I've got something specific wrong with my lawn, or if it's just the way it's going to be.
Yeah, Ron, no. I understand this issue with the water saving, especially at this time of year, we begin to run low. But the only solution, Ron, and I've been advocating this for a long time, is to go and get, you can get all different sizes, but get a tank and bury it in your lawn. It doesn't have to be a big process, and direct all the water from your eaves troughs to go into this tank. And you can do it by hand. It's just a question of getting it done, so you've got that little extra water. The GVRD right now, or the commercial, you've heard it, 1 inch of water a week will certainly help. But also it's the type of soil you have to retain moisture, and that's why your lawn may be going a little bit more yellow than it should. So my suggestion at this point here is, think about getting a tank in the lawn to get you extra water to have anywhere in your garden. I think that's absolutely important. The other thing, as soon as you can get water, when the restrictions, we start getting our rain, make sure everything is watered thoroughly and deeply as much as you can, and then get a summer fertilizer on your lawn to help it green up quickly. When I love basically Scott's Canada have a really good one. It's very high nitrogen. It's 29, like 4.6 or whatever, something like that. But it's timed release. Let's get that on as soon as we start getting water to get that green back on your lawn, because it's so very important to be able to do that. And those are the things I would consider, Ron, to make things perk up and green up much more quickly.
Good luck to you, Ron. Appreciate the call. We have to move on, Ron. I appreciate it. Let's go to, and Brian, that's a great reminder around rain barrels. Certainly cities from Richmond to Vancouver and everywhere else suggest just putting it in there and saving it. And just a quick Google search looks like they're not overly expensive. Let's go to Carol in Trail. You're on, Carol. Go ahead.
Hi. Wonderful to speak with you, Brian.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
About 3.5 years ago, I moved to Trail from Vancouver, and I have a very large garden in the backyard, 40 by 16. Covered it for one summer, and then I've been building a mixture of flowering plants and raised vegetable beds. And but I have been testing my soil, and every spring completely low on nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. And so what I did last spring or last fall was put in a bunch of manure, and I also dug in a bunch of peat moss, because the sandy soil here, all the water just runs right out. And so what should I be doing to continuously build this soil and maybe get it to a state where, it will hold the water and the nutrients.
Yeah, good point. We're talking regeneration, soil regeneration. That is very, very important. And one of the elements is, yes, getting your, I love mushroom compost in terms of getting your soil fixed, because the fiber in mushroom compost, I think, is very, very good as well. You may be doing that already. But the one thing about regenerative gardening is you never, ever leave your soil bare. If you could, Carol, get some buckwheat. We always talk about fall rye in the fall. I find it's awkward to be able to dig that in before you can use your garden in the spring, but buckwheat will die down. So get that on as soon as you possibly can. A good time to do that right now. I know we're finishing up our garden. We still have things in there, but as soon as you can, spread that over your garden, and it will build up the nitrogen in your soil. There's also winter wheat and winter peas, a combination of those things that are really great at building up nitrogen as well. But that's the type of approach, the winter crops. And again, for regenerative gardening, never leave your soil bare. And buckwheat, I think, is one of the best things you could possibly do to try. But the mushroom compost in the spring would really help regenerate that soil so it has more moisture retention and easier to work.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Carol, for the call. Appreciate it. Brian, we have an email I want to put to you. Jean is in Kelowna saying, I inherited a horse chestnut tree when I bought a home, and he thinks it's about 30 years old. How old do they get? How much pruning should be done? And is there something to improve its health? Because every year there's 90% leaf loss in hot August.
Yeah, that's a very good point for Jean. Thank you. In terms of the tree itself, keeping it in relation to the size of your lot and its location, keeping it pruned so it looks like it belongs in that situation, not overpowering or too small. The other thing, in terms of the water in the summer, I hear we've had so many problems this summer in terms of all of a sudden the leaves burning. It's because they don't have access to moisture down deep. And I love that. So in the fall, going around the drip line of the tree and adding organic matter, whatever you can do, you can find. That's certainly when we like sea soil. We like some of the trees are not necessarily manure lovers, but any type of organic compost to get more moisture retention. And you're right, the big thing right now, and I know we're in water shortages, around the drip line of the tree to get, and that's the only place you want to put it, is a soaker hose so the water goes down. That's where the water is going to be needed the most, so we don't get these leaves all of a sudden disappearing. So those are, I think, the questions that are really important. But again, building up a soil is going to be the long-term solution. But right now, around the drip line, soaker hose.
There we are. Jennifer is joining us from Port Clement. Jennifer, you're on. Go ahead.
Hi. Thanks for taking my call. So I live on Haida Gwaii. I've got a flea beetle problem. It's probably its third year now. It's hard to get nematodes at the right time of year for the right application because I live on Haida Gwaii. So I don't know, how can I need to get rid of it. My potato crop was like really negligible this year, well, for the last few years, but what do you suggest?
Yeah, we informally for 50 years had a product called Sevin, S-E-V-I-N, which was the control for flea beetles. It was taken off the market, so basically we left a bit of a gap there. But we don't have many things to put on, but I'm going to suggest this. But get a hold of some BTK. It should be up there. It's a bacteria. And we're just having really good success with that. There's also, it's on the domestic market and allowed to be sold. There's a product called Bug X, which is a chrysanthemum derivative. It too has been very successful at controlling flea beetles. So those are the two things I would certainly give it a try. But if you, Jennifer, can get a hold of the BTK right away, get it on the foliage of your plants, we're finding it does a little more than things we expect. We're also getting good results in our lawns from a lot of the grubs that are now laying their eggs. It's a different type of bacteria, but those are the future, I think, of where we're going. And those are the two things I would really recommend, Jennifer.
Jennifer, thank you so much. We have to jump to another call. Really appreciate your time up in Haida Gwaii. Cheryl joins us from Abbotsford in the Fraser Valley. Go ahead, Cheryl.
Oh, hello, Brian, and hello, Dan. I like the beard.
Thank you. I'll let my dad know.
On another show.
Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Yeah. My question is about my tomatoes and my my peppers. So I'm growing in containers. I gave them good soil. Gave them in a tomato fertilizer when I planted them. I've got lots of leaves, and I want to know how severely can I cut my leaves back on my tomato plants so that I can get more tomato production? And what about the peppers? Should I be trimming back some of the leaves on the peppers so that the peppers get more sun and more room to grow larger?
Yeah, Cheryl, both very good questions. Number one, I want to point out to you and to everybody else right now, as of August 15th, we're in late blight season. So on your tomatoes and potatoes in particular, keep the water off the foliage. Otherwise, you'll lose them almost overnight. So keep an eye on that. The second thing is, I think your tomatoes are starved right now, to be very frank with you. There's, Blossom Booster. There's all sorts of different fertilizers with high phosphorus and potash on them, which you need almost right away. So any type of liquid fertilizer to feed those tomatoes right away to get them sized up. Your question is great about taking some of the leaves away from the fruit. We're in the middle of another hot spell right now, so I'm not too anxious to do this until we get through this hot spell. You'll get scalding happening. I'm seeing a lot of that this year on our tomatoes, but that's very important. The peppers, no, you don't need to take any leaves off. They ripen just fine the way they are, and they're very heat tolerant. But again, liquid feed. We'd normally recommend 10, 15, 19. It's the right proportional feed on our plants. It just takes a little bit longer to get released, but you need to get nutrient on right now. No nitrogen, but high phosphorus and potash is the secret to get the fruit to size up, because we still have lots of time, no question at all. So Cheryl, I hope that helps.
Cheryl, thank you very much. Great to hear from you, and all the best. Dustin is joining us from East Vancouver. Dustin, go ahead.
Hey, everybody. First time, long time. Thanks for taking my call. Shout out to Mark Forsyth. What I'm wondering is, Brian, are there any plants that still stump you?
Oh, trivia question.
You know what? I go to as many different types of shows, horticultural shows, in Europe or in North America, to always keep up to date. And the biggest problem is so many new things are coming out right now. It's a challenge to keep up with all the different varieties, and everything's exploding in terms of the varieties. But yes, absolutely. If you want to be totally honest, there's a few things you never heard. A few weeks ago, I was really upset, and I had a lot of phone calls from orchardists after about some, very 30-year-old trees that were suddenly starting to die back, and when they shouldn't at all. So there's things like that come up all the time. And the beautiful thing about our industry is we're always learning. There's new things, and I tell you, the very best thing is my good fortune to be on CBC, because if I don't know something, I get a very nice phone call after the program saying, Brian, I want to tell you about this. We just have the greatest folks on CBC. So thank you. Very, very good call, Dustin.
You speak the truth. Dustin, thanks for the call, and you speak the truth, Brian. This is more of a comment than a question, Brian, but we heard from Katarina, who said she was listening to the segment about getting a lawn green again, and she said, I was dismayed the suggestion was to keep the lawn instead of suggesting alternatives that support ecosystems. I know this is something you've brought up in the past around some people's obsession with the green lawn and letting it go brown, because brown is beautiful, and that movement away from having, trying to sustain a big yard and putting in local plants that really help, retain water and soil, etc.
Yeah, and Dan, really good comment there. The thing about lawns is I'm a spokesperson for Fire Smart BC. And one of the things that is very dangerous is a brown lawn in terms of sparks getting in there and so on. That's one of the things we always worry about. And I'm happy to see that GVRD is saying, 1 inch of water a week will at least maintain it to depending on the conditions. So those are other factors we want to keep in mind. And in terms of lawn, I always have appreciated them. But the fact is, the bacteria, microorganisms in the soil, the fact that lawn helps cool neighborhoods, the fact that lawn produces enough oxygen to keep 4 people alive. There are so many important things about that. It's adding clover to our lawns, the right types of clover to our lawns right now. And there's many other things we can add in. So it's a whole program in terms of question and discussion. And there's good, bad, and ugly about everything. But yeah, we need to be always looking at alternatives. And I guess the other thing is the development of new grasses that are totally drought tolerant, that do many things. And what do you got for pollinators in your lawn? And that's where the clover comes in. So Dan, you've opened up Pandora's box here of things to talk about. Thanks, Dan.
Yeah. Always on a Friday, eh, Brian? We've got 2 calls left. We'll squeeze them in. Karen in Kelowna, if you can be quick. Karen, go ahead, please.
Yes. Brian, I have a question about hornworm. My tomatoes got absolutely infested with what I think is hornworm. I don't have a tomato on my 10-foot vines. What can I do to prevent that for next year?
Yeah, I know they're big larvae, they're huge, but the BTK, it's a bacteria that is non-harmful to predators and so on, but I'm a big BTK fan. That would have stopped the problem right away. Also, when you get it on your plants, it stops them from feeding immediately, so that would have been the solution. I'm sorry we didn't talk earlier.
Good.
Appreciate the call, Karen. Thank you very much. And Kevin in Trail is our last call. Go ahead, Kevin.
Hello. I've got creeping Charlie in my backyard. It's taking over the grass totally, and it's an ideal spot for it because the neighbors have great big blue spruce shading, so semi-shade. There's a creek at the bottom of my lawn, or lot.
Yeah.
I can't use chemicals. I'm debating about using plastic.
How bad is it in terms of, Kevin, in terms of the coverage, Kevin, how bad is it? Is it 50%, 25%?
It's 50% now.
Oh, wow. That's Nepeta is, it's very invasive. And you're not going to like me for this, but I think, if you get it once, now is the time to tackle it because it's visible and easy to see, whereas in the other months, it's hard to do that. I'm going to say, just get down on your hands and knees and go through and pull every little bit of that out you possibly can. That is the only way with Creeping Charlie you're going to be able to have any success.
Kevin, I hate to cut this off, and Brian, I hate to cut this off, but we're right out of time. They always pack it in for you, Brian Minter, our master gardener and columnist from Country Garden Limited in Chilliwack, and he'll be back next week, folks. Thanks again, Brian.
Thank you so much, Dan.
And that is it for our show. Thank you for calling in and joining the discussion. Sorry for having to cut off a few of you. You can always email us, bctoday@cbc.ca.